Have you been experiencing internal financial struggles triggered by economic concerns? Are you feeling capped at your current income level and can't seem to realize your financial potential? Energy healer Jean Border has created an emotional freedom technique, or EFT, tapping protocol to help calm the inner voice that keeps you stressed. Claim your free copy at jeanborder.com/vow and say goodbye to those financial blockages. Welcome to another episode of the Focused Practical Dreamer's Journey podcast, Energy Work to Better Your Business, hosted by energy healer Jean Border. It's not just about dreaming, it's about making those dreams a practical reality. Subscribe to us via your favorite network by visiting our website at www.focusedpracticaldreamer.com. Now, get ready. Your journey to success starts here.
Hello, everyone. It's your host, Jean Border, with another great episode of the Focused Practical Dreamer's Journey podcast, where we talk about all things energy and how you can use that to better your business. So before we get started here, I want to remind everyone that I have, if you look down below in the notes, click on the link, jeanborder.com/income. There are some EFT, Emotional Freedom Technique tapping protocols for those of you who happen to be a little bit stressed about your money situation. I know we've got the economy going on in the U.S. with some issues, and people are worried about some things that might be happening in the banking industry in particular. So if that's you, just grab a copy. It's free. It's just a PDF. But if you need some help, I'm here for questions, whatever you need. Okay? So now back to the show. I have a cool special guest with me. I've had several conversations with my new guest. This is Ell Graniel. Did I say that correctly?
Of course you did.
Cool. Yes. We only met recently, but we've had some really cool discussions. So I wanted to give her a chance to let you learn about her as I'm learning about her. Hi, Elle. How are you? Glad to have you.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here because we were just chatting earlier about how you and I do similar work, but in different ways that we serve people. Because when people think that there's competition, they've just created this box around themselves and a glass ceiling. So you and I are collaborating and it feels fabulous. So thanks for inviting.
Cool. So talk to me a little bit about your background. How you got from where you started to where you are now in business. Anything you want to tell us about how this became important to you?
Okay, thank you. So first there were the dinosaurs. No, I'm just kidding.
Let's not go that far back.
So what's interesting about my journey is, so now we're talking about, Elle and True Speak. I founded my business just over 25 years ago. And my tag phrase is, say what you want, the truth is in you. And I do believe that our glory gets, tainted and, kicked dirt on and stuff when we're young, and we just aren't emotionally able to deal with these things that are happening to us. And so I got certified with the International Academy of Self-Knowledge in a process called transformational meditation. It's different. It's a scientifically proven process where we go into the neuroplasticity of your mind and help rewire those old thoughts so they stop running amok. So I am now an intra-personal communication authority. So before that, I was a business mentor, helping people, and I still do that. I help people become not managers, but leaders. What's that shift? What does that look like? And even if it's your own business, how do you step out of the management role and become a leader? And so that's interpersonal communication. And intra is those voices in your head. Those voices in your head that are distracting, they're loud, they run amok, they keep us awake at night, they make us second guess ourselves. Because once you get those voices straight, everything you speak and then everything you do falls into place, right? So this has been a process for me. I've been doing it, like I told you, over 25 years. And my big shift was I grew up with all the abuses, poverty, sexual, financial, emotional, all of them. And I grew up in a trailer park. to even, put more icing on the cake there. And then I got away from the trailer park and I went to college, and which was a miracle in itself. And then after that, I started getting into this self-help stuff. So back in the day, because I'm 62, it was a cassette series program. You'd get these cassettes in the mail once a week. It was a club. And it was Nightingale Conant. So I started getting Les Brown, Zig Ziglar, these motivational speakers. And I don't know exactly, Jean, when or how it happened, but one day I had the aha light bulb that said, oh, I'm in charge. It's not the economy. It's not the political leadership. It's not that I grew up in poverty. It's not that I'm a Latina female. Like, all of these are excuses or labels that people allow to tether them down. And it was just like that. Once I realized that I'm in charge, I made the decisions, everything changed. And it's just been a glorious journey ever since.
Yeah, it is so easy to fall into I'm going to call it the label syndrome. Well, I'm part of this community, so look how we're oppressed. I'm part of this health group. Look at all the things that we have to go through. Well, some people do have to go through that, but some of it is how you view the world and what you believe to be possible.
Yes.
If you feel you have no control, most likely you will give away what little control you might actually have to make a change in your world. Not always true. Sometimes you absolutely have no control. But sometimes when the possibility hits your mind, you say, wait a minute, I could try going this direction and see what happens. But if we get so focused on the negative, we give away our power. Right?
We do. And that's why my motto is, say what you want, the truth is in you. People focus too much on what they don't want instead of what they do want. They focus too much on what if these things go wrong instead of how can I get what I want? Who can help me? What are the steps? So when we shift our thoughts to what we want, we start getting more of that.
I have 3 steps that I repeat over and over. Awareness, figure out what the heck you want. Focus on what the heck you want, and then take strategic action that will lead you to where the heck you want to go, right? But if you don't know where you want to go, you're never going to get there. And if you don't focus on it and see the possibilities and see the steps that it will take to get there, 5 years from now, you're going to be saying, yeah, I really kind of want that.
Exactly. It's like when people start college and they say, so they're 30, right? And they want their degree and they're like, I'm too old. And then they're 35 and they would have already had their degree if they had just done it, right? Because time continues to march on regardless of our desires. And when you also think about when people come to me or you for the accountability and the benevolent handholding through the process, that's how things happen, because it's hard for people to ask for help. They're either too proud, or it means they're not intelligent enough, or those voices start running amok, right? So when you have a partner to walk you through these processes, you get there faster, easier, and under grace, because that's what the strategic part of what you're saying is all about. So what do you want? How can you get there? But then that's when we have to ask for help, and people just don't like to do that. But you know what? You know how great you feel when you help somebody? So you're robbing people of that feeling when you don't ask or accept.
But from somebody who is very independent and comes from the mindset, well, I should be able to do that, it can be really challenging to include somebody else in that process.
Mm-hmm.
I'm one of them. I'm honest. I have high expectations for myself, and when I don't make them, I get really ticked off at myself.
Mm-hmm.
Knowing full well that, yes, I don't need to learn everything, like with the podcast. I pay a crew to do all the technical stuff. I tried it. I can do it. I don't enjoy it. I handed it off, right? Mm-hmm. I've done my due diligence. That's the way I look at it. I can do it if something happens and I need to, step in and do something. I don't get joy from it. Right. But asking for help before I've reconciled it in my head that it's okay to need help, that's can be a difficult process.
Mm-hmm. And, you bring up the good point. Here's the distinction. So for those of us who are really independent, I can do it. I don't need anybody. The first step is to then do it. And then say, okay, I don't want to do this. And now So there's it's a little tiny Venn diagram, the gray area where I want to do it. I don't need help. And then right in the middle, I did it. And then from there, you can decide, well, I'm going to continue to do this, or then you'll give it up and over to somebody else. So your process is very valuable. And any change takes practice. It doesn't always feel good in the beginning.
And in business, it's important to go through that procedure, I think, because it makes us feel comfortable that if we hand off something to somebody else, we can see if they're doing the job we need them to do or not, right?
Absolutely.
And then we can take action when they're a little bit off the path.
Yeah. And so speaking to all the entrepreneurs out there right now, because I'm one as well, is the mistake entrepreneurs make and crushes them is they try to wear all the hats because they don't want to ask for help. I'm going to be tech. I'm going to be marketing. I'm going to be social media, all of this. And it's overwhelming. And so that being said, when you follow your technique of doing it and then deciding where to delegate it, like for example, I have an assistant and they love all that stuff that I don't enjoy. However, Canva, who we use to create our things, just expanded so much of what they offer. So I'm going in to look at what they offer, decide if it's what I want, and then turn it over to my assistant, as opposed to telling my assistant, oh, Canva just exploded, go in there and check it out and let me know what we need. I still need the control. I still need to know that if my assistant, went off the grid for a couple weeks on vacation, I could still run my business.
And that is an important aspect of having a small business. It is within your control. Everything that happens, you ultimately get to decide. And I think that's why a lot of us go into business, is because maybe someone gets disenchanted with the job that they were in, or the team that they were a part of, or the boss that was thrust upon them when they really loved the previous boss, but really don't respect this one, So I think control comes into play a lot with entrepreneurs.
Exactly. And when you think about control, it's so conforming and tight, right? So if we can think about flow, but you're still in charge of that flow. You're still saying it's going in this direction. But then when you feel the need to control it because it's not going a certain way, that's when you go inside, hopefully, and go, okay, how can this flow better? Because you realize the control's not working with this situation or this person. That control is not working. Anybody who's had teenagers that they've tried to control know exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah, there's also a balance that you have to find when you are an entrepreneur and you are now utilizing other people for parts of your business.
Mm-hmm.
Are you a micromanager, or are you I'm going to be hands off? How much input are you going to have into the actions and the production of the people you hire? If you're going over everything they do all the time, is the person saving you money by having them on staff? Have you gained enough confidence in yourself and your business and the person you have hired to help you, right? I see micromanagers and I'm like, why are you spending the money? If you're doing the work yourself, if you're changing everything they give you, either A, they're not a good fit, or B, you're not ready for someone to do that function because you don't trust them.
Being a micromanager is exhausting. I've never met a micromanager who doesn't work 60 plus hours a week.
Exactly.
Because they need that control, right? And so when you look at talking about flow, like I was speaking a moment ago, so you give them the power. You believe in them, you hired them, you vetted them, you believe they can do it. And then if something comes up a little less than perfect, you don't say, I knew it. They can't do anything. Whoa, here we go spinning off into these universal qualifiers of NLP, right? And so instead, you have a nice little meeting with them. It's like, I don't know if I made this clear or if we even talked about it. And going forward, this is what I need, or this is how it should look. And they're going to be on board. Nobody's intentionally sabotaging your business for the most part. And I'm sure there's
the most part.
I'm sure there's exceptions to the rule, but not if you hired somebody to be on your team. So knowing that we are all human and that things will not be perfect in all situations. And I just had a situation. I was talking with a client about perfectionism. And I said, I'm not here for perfection. I'm here for the whole enchilada. Meaning that I want to be a macro manager. I want the whole big fun experience, not to sit there and pick out the onions, or so the perfectionism, when we can let go of that, which takes practice for those people who are perfectionists. And then once you get on the other side, you go, man, I should have done this a long time ago. And you're a perfectionist. We never really let go of some of those things.
One of the big downsides to being a micromanager, in my opinion, is the effect it has on your staff. It's the biggest confidence killer in the world. If you've got somebody who doesn't trust you to do the most basic stuff, they're paying you to do it, but they don't trust you to do it. Why are you there, right? There is no confidence. There's no matter what words come out of the person's mouth, the overall perception is they don't trust me.
That's one of the things that takes you from being a manager to a leader, is recognizing that people want to be seen and heard and appreciated. So if somebody has a certain task that's their job and you're micromanaging and correcting them constantly, then they're going to become underperformers, because now they have the fear of, what if I do it wrong? I don't want to do it wrong again. I'm afraid to do it wrong again. So now you've undermined somebody who had the potential to be amazing, whereas instead you pick the one thing and you say, this is how it's going. This is how I'd like for it to be. Do you have any questions? Because I know you can do this. That's why you're in this position. So when people feel seen and heard and appreciated, they want to show up. They want to do a good job, and you'll have less need to look at their work. It'll just be good.
And another side effect of that is, why should I bother when they're going to redo it all anyway? And so that kills the drive to be exceptional.
Yeah.
No matter what I turn in, they're going to change it anyway. So I'll just give them something to work with. And that's just, you come to the place where you're resigned to never being right. And that's a lousy place to be in a job, you know? I'm big on leadership. I'm big on team building. My listeners know I had 36 years in leadership positions. And my biggest thrill was creating teams, high-functioning teams, high-reputation teams. I love that. I don't like dissension. I like hiring for skills that my team needs. So I don't want everybody to have the same skill, because then I've got deficits. I don't want deficits. I want a high-performing, high-producing, high-quality team that everybody wants, right? That's what juices me.
Mm-hmm.
I'm big on training. I would drive my employees nuts with the training. But I wanted everybody to have the same training so they could interpret however they wanted. But when it came down to it, I knew exactly what everyone was told, So in that sense, I did micromanage a little bit. 2 weeks of training every year, regardless. I don't think that was unreasonable.
No, it's not at all. And I believe you trained in such a way that it was valuable, right? They looked forward to it, they learned from it, and they implemented it and those types of things. You never want to be a talking head.
Exactly.
You want to be a source of inspiration.
And the other part that I did that would stress them out, but was so good for them, everybody had to conduct one of the training sessions for the group. There's no way to learn faster and more in depth than having to teach something and having to answer the questions of the group that come up after you've taught something. So that was my little behind the scenes chuckle. I would just sit there and ha ha ha. Let's see what you know.
Yeah. And if it's your passion, you don't even need to prepare. Do you know what I mean? If somebody wants to talk to me about public speaking, I could go on and on for hours because it's one of my areas of expertise. How do you get over the phobias and the fears and voice projection, diaphragmatic breathing? Like, let's just, how far, how much time do you have? Kind of. But it's learn, do, not just blah, 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 blah. So segments, teach, do, come back, go into what my mentor says, the laboratory of life, and see what happened and then come back and report on it, is a great way to be facilitating information. And so when we so I'm a big sports gal. I've been playing softball since I was 8 years old. And so baseball, I love. So when you say teams, creating teams, that my last book's called The Team Whisperer. I'm just a sports gal, so lots of sports analogies. And we all know there's offensive, there's defensive, there's points, there's infielders, it's same with a business. If you want to have a winning business, create a team that specializes and loves what they do and are all stars in that area. And that's not to say sometimes they won't have to chip in areas that's not their expertise, but they'll be willing to because it's for the team.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. And when there's an underperforming person on the team, it's in a healthy team, the other team members will make it known to that person. And as the boss, you won't have to step in because everybody else is going to help them pull their weight or figure out what's going on and see what they're missing or how they feel overwhelmed or whatever, and take some of the load off so they can now get back up to where they like to be performance-wise.
Yes. When I was doing the research for the book, The Team Whisperer, oh my gosh, one of the biggest over and over again complaints was that the managers won't address, tension. They won't address an underperforming person. They won't. And that's your job. As a leader, that's what you're getting paid to do. And they just like to look the other way and hope it works itself out. And I found that to be mind-blowing, that you could be the leader and watch things fall apart. And
I'm gonna throw in something here. As a boss, in my previous position, there were specific rules and regulations that we had to follow. And part of that was confidentiality. So even, and it created stress for the team, but it was just the fact of life. Even if I was behind the scenes disciplining an employee, I couldn't speak that to the rest of the team.
Right.
Because that's not their business. My relationship with that employee is not their business. I could say, we're addressing something, well, hopefully that will be better in the near future. I could never come out and say, no, we've been writing this guy up. We've got a sequence that we have to follow, to go through the suspensions and all that. But for the team, it does create stress when in their perception of what's going on, whether it's true or not. If they believe the manager, the boss, whatever you want to call them, is falling down on the job, if they're not doing their job, why should I do mine?
Right. Yeah. Hopefully they're able to see that this person is occasionally being brought into the office. So they don't really know what's going on, but they see it's kind of, being a little bit addressed. And like what you're saying, say, for example, when I was coaching the girls softball team, we were in the league. As a parent, we had all these complaints, right? And then I got on the board to make a difference. Then I found out all the reasons why things are done that way. It's not they're trying to save money. It's not that they're cheap. It's not that they don't care. They are following protocols that you have to follow to be in the league, And so it's that kind of thing when you're a leader, you know things that are literally above their pay grade, as the saying goes, right? So they just will have to have enough faith in you to know that you know what you're doing and you're going to take them there.
I really appreciate the fact that even though I retired several years ago, my staff, when they come into town, we go out to dinner. That's if they didn't value what I brought to the table, there's no way they would contact me and let me know they were in town. So I get great joy from that. It's just dinner. It's not a big deal, but it is a big deal. How many times have you gone out to dinner with one of your previous bosses after you left their employ? And I think that that's a testament to my style as opposed to someone else's. And maybe I'm just patting myself on the back, but I think that's so cool that they still want to be friends with me, whatever,
It speaks volumes to the fact that they're not being paid to spend time with you.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. Too funny. Now, granted, sometimes they're asking me technical questions, and that's fine too, because again, I have the reputation of being the trainer. And if they're not getting that from their current bosses or their current structure, and I can provide it, sure. Provide value where you can, right? You mentioned earlier NLP. Talk to me about how that plays a role sometimes in leadership positions.
So there's volumes written on neurolinguistic programming, right? And when you think about what part of that can you use in leadership, it is taking down what I call the big five, like have to, all the shoulds, the should, would, coulds, the negative thinking, like, I don't want this. Well, what do you want? Those types of things, that's the foundation for intrapersonal communication. And so NLP is a combination of being a good listener. So then then what you say addresses what you believe you heard, as opposed to just making the assumption you know what's going on. You're bringing this person in to tell them what they need to know, right? You to be a good listener first. So NLP teaches us, so NLP basically is the way we draw information in, which most of us do it the same way, and then we store it. And how we store it is similar, but different brains do it a different way. And then how we repurpose it. So we bring it in, we store it, and then we save it till we need it. And how we repurpose it varies wildly. And so as a manager, when you practice using neurolinguistic programming and NLP, positive words and phrasing, being a good listener, being intentional with your words, then people see you as authentic. You keep showing up the same way every time. And they're never worried about, is it a bad day? Can I talk to them about this today? Is this a good time? You have kind of an open door policy, if not literally, that people know that they can come and speak to you. And so that's the role that NLP plays, is you take the information in, you process it, and then you give your leadership in a consistent way. And people like that. It's comforting.
I'm going to switch topics again. You've written multiple books.
I have 3. And I've got a 4th one right now in the works.
So what came up that caused you to decide, I need to write a book about X, about Y, about Z?
I help people finish their books, because I believe everybody has a book in them. Be it an autobiography or a fiction or a nonfiction book. And other people want to hear your story because they can relate. And in my case, I'm an avid reader and I'm a word nerd. So it only made sense that I was eventually going to write, right? It was just, so I did become a writer. And my first book happened kind of, I say, by accident. I was a fitness instructor forever. I've been a fitness instructor since leg warmers and headbands. And so I used to, that was a visual maybe you don't want it.
I love leg warmers. And I had all the fluorescent colors, okay? And the fluorescent shoelaces to go along with them and the hair things. Yeah, I was big into that.
The scrunchies. Yeah, the scrunchies. And so when I would teach my classes, I would always end with a tip. And your fitness tip for the day is, and sometimes they would be silly and sometimes they would be serious, like never sit down with an entire bag or box of anything, or always eat your sandwiches topless, and one.
Okay, now that one's interesting. I assume you mean with one piece of bread, but that's not the first image that comes up.
I did. And so the book ended up with these topics. The book's called Chocolate Cake for the Thighs.
Oh, that's funny.
The anti-diet book for women. So it was a play on chicken soup for the soul.
Yeah.
And this lady said, you should be writing these tips down and put them in a book. And so that was in 2006. And so that's what I did. 101 tips, started writing them down, self-published. And then many years later, my ladies are all aging up and there's things like diabetes and high blood pressure and cholesterol issues. And so then I wrote Get Happier and Healthier Now, 7 Steps to Improved Health in a Body You Can Love, addressing those issues, the more mature issues of health and fitness. And then because my background is in communication and I was a manager for 24-hour fitness for 24 years, and I saw that there started to be this gap between leadership and management. And I saw people hating their jobs. I saw people counting the days to retirement. I saw people, to just taking 6 days because they're sick, instead of just wanting time off. So that's how I got into the Team Whisperer, successfully lead a cross-generation race and gender team. So it started fun, it got a little more serious, and then it got into my passion. And then the one I'm working on now is about intrapersonal communication, those voices in your head. And so I love to write. I write short stories for Kindle Vella. Kindle has short stories. And so I get it that some people don't enjoy writing. But there's a lot of ways to do it. Voice notes, doodling, put it all together. But it's a great way to, speaking of neuroplasticity, keeping the right and the left sides of the brains functioning. So we're not too much creative. We're not too much logical. We can be there when we need to be, but cross over when we need to be. I believe that's what writing does for us. That was a long answer. Thanks for listening.
Yeah, no, it's good information. And there are studies even on how writing is more beneficial for motivation, for results, even than just typing on a keyboard. The physical act of writing with your hand and an instrument in your hand, because you've got physical activity going on with the brain activity, right? With all the thought process. So it's very interesting, all the science that comes out about the weirdest stuff,
Exactly. And it's heartbreaking that the generations now don't write. So they're not even going to be exposed to the process of and creative, because writing is logical. There's a technique to it. No matter if you think your handwriting's messy, that's not important. What's important is that you're writing, because then it flows easily into the creative side. We get that nice ebb and flow. So I have a huge concern about the loss of writing.
One of the, since we're talking about books, I don't even know if I've ever mentioned this on here before, but some of the books that I have written are to teach preschoolers how to write the alphabet and the numbers. And then my niece mentioned to me just a couple weeks ago, she said, you also need to put those out again, but with cursive letters instead of just printed letters.
Yes.
Because that's not something they're learning or that they're comfortable with, right? So I don't know, I have 5, 6, 7 books out there, different on different topics, with like dinosaurs, roar through the alphabet, right? And every letter has a different type of dinosaur that they learn a lot about. And then bark through the alphabet, which is the dogs, and boo through the alphabet, which is Halloween, just different ones like that. But they were focused on printing. But now I'm seriously considering redoing a separate series on the cursive writing skills.
Yes. And to just make it a lovely process and fun, like your other books, because I remember when I was learning cursive writing, and you may remember this as well, the letters went a certain way and they had to curl and angle. And I was not really very good at it. I think maybe I got a C, but I was an A student, for the most part. And it was devastating I had an instructor, a teacher who was not very loving and kind or supportive, was like, this is wrong. This is wrong. And so as a kid, you begin to think that you can't do things right or you can't do things good enough. And those shadow parts get created. And people don't realize, like you do for the good part of let's make this fun. Let's make this enjoyable so that it's a good experience. So that as we grow, we say, I can do this. Yeah. So it's time.
Yeah. The whole learning and repetition and not feeling like a failure is a big deal. Right? Yeah, I keep coming back to the old picture of a child learning to walk. I mean, I know that's used a lot, but if you didn't have your child repeatedly try to walk, no matter how many times they failed, they'd still be in their crib or in their bassinet. At 84 years old, they would have never gotten out of the bassinet. Right. So life, there was another person that I heard of that I thought was really interesting. Every day when she came home from school, her father would have her and I think it was her brother, celebrate what they failed at that day. So what that does is open up their world to trying new things all the time with no expectation that failure was bad.
Right.
So I thought that was really interesting. I've never seen it played out in real life, but it seemed to make her more adventurous. I think I'm pretty adventurous already, so I don't know that I need to talk about my failures every day, but I guess there's something cathartic in there.
Yeah.
But it does teach you to keep trying,
That's the thing. That's the neural pathways again. So they got neural pathways that taught them that it's okay that everything doesn't go well. Instead of what did I do wrong? How did I fail?
Mm-hmm.
Because we don't fail. Everything's a learning experience. It's just the parameters we put up. I joke that the grass is always greener on the other side because there's more manure over there.
Oh, okay. So that brings up social media. Everybody looks perfect on social media because they've spent 2 hours putting on their makeup and getting the lighting just right and taking 1,400 pictures and sorting through them to get the one that they want to have the world think represents them on their everyday life. Oh my gosh, no. All right? So and I'm going to throw this word out there. I don't really like the phrase, but it's a common phrase, and that's imposter syndrome.
Right.
Talk to me about that.
Oh my gosh. So I speak on imposter syndrome. It's one of my keynotes and my breakout sessions because I'm so passionate about it. And it's that we have these voices, again, that's the intrapersonal communication, that these things happen to us when we were young, that we're not good enough, that we're not pretty enough, our older sister's the pretty one, because people say that. They'll say, you can be at the grocery store with your 2 kids and the cashier will say, oh, your daughter's so beautiful. Like just nothing about you, just about, so all these things happen to us and we're just not able, unless we had parents that had the skills to address it. So we grow up thinking we're not pretty enough. We're not smart enough. We're not, and then that just self-sabotages everything that we do. And so one of the ways around imposter syndrome is to gentle parent them. So the way that you do that is you say, I heard you, like a kid going, mom, 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 mom. Okay, hold on. I hear you. And then you say, right now I'm doing this, and take a look at how fabulous this is going. And I promise you that this is how it's going to be going forward. So how that looks like in the imposter syndrome is, say you have a voice that says, you're so lazy, you never finish anything. You say, I heard you. Take a look at how much I've accomplished today. Like, I was just on a podcast and I had 2 client calls. So your job now is to look at everything that I do accomplish. And so you see them, you show them, you tell them, so there's, I see you, this is the truth, this is the new plan. And that's the beginning of having a more healthy relationship with those voices. But man, imposter syndrome causes people disease, breakups, job loss, injuries for professional athletes. That's imposter syndrome, and so much more. It's such a big factor that humans have. We've had experiences, and maybe we were old enough to handle it, maybe we weren't.
Well, we should all be perfect, right? We should do everything perfectly.
Yeah.
Not only that, we should do everything perfectly the first time we try it. And if we don't, then we're a failure. Or if we mess it up, but people don't notice all the little details that we messed up, they don't know the real me, right?
Mm-hmm. Or we don't get the results fast enough. That's another thing. We're conditioned to fast now, and if not, what's wrong? And I blame TV. Once they started those 30-minute sitcoms with commercials, and TV shows, everything was always wrapped up in less than 30 minutes. And it was the beginning of us thinking that everything should wrap up, for starters, and that everything has solution, and it can all be done quickly. But that's not true. Some things do wrap up quickly. Some things are a lifetime before we get to put the bow on it.
It's like planting a seed in the ground. Just because you put the seed in the ground doesn't mean that when you turn your head and turn back, there's going to be a really pretty flower or a really pretty fruit tree there, Some things have a process that they have to go through, including you.
Yes. And sometimes, like, when you go to that idea, so you think you planted an orange tree, you put the seeds, somebody gave you the orange seeds, somebody else gave you the orange seeds. And then next thing you know, you've got a peach tree, and you're like, what did I do wrong? You didn't do anything wrong. Somebody gave you something that wasn't what you desired. You took it at face value and you nurtured it until one day you realize, this isn't what I want, hopefully. And then you figure out how to get what you want. The first thing that I would think is, who has an orange tree I can trade peaches for?
And that's the whole collaboration, team building part, right?
Mm-hmm.
But not everyone thinks that way. Some people would get angry. Look at all the work I put in. If this person, they did it to me on purpose, right? They gave me the wrong seeds just so I would waste all this time. So our perception is our reality. And we have the privilege of creating our own reality in so many ways.
Mm-hmm. Every day, with every thought, leads to how we feel, leads to how we respond, right? And act. And perception, I love that, because when you think about, so here's, my glasses, they're trifocals. I can see far, I can see, they're fabulous. But if I gave you to these and asked you to put them on, you would go, whoa, your life is jacked. For me, it's amazing, right? So perception is how we view life, which is just our personal prescription of what we were handed, how we handled it, and all of that. So when we can perceive things from a broader scope, then we can decide what lane we want to be in.
This has been a really cool discussion, but we're getting close to the end of our time together. But before we go, you have some resources for our listeners.
I do, of course. Come bearing gifts. So I have something called the Success Mindset Scorecard. And what I love about it is it's a little quiz that you can't fail.
Thank you.
And so it helps you look at, what do I want? Why do I want it? And how badly do I want it? You know what I mean? So like, this is what I want. What are the steps? And how can I get there, kind of thing. And then once you get that score, it immediately sends you to, okay, you fell in this category. That means that, you're here and there and want this and that. It's a generality to help you realize how to get what you want faster and easier and under grace, which is a big thing for me. And then the second thing is, I'm a human. I'm a people person. I like talking to people. So in the show notes, there'll be my calendar link. I put aside 30 minutes. Let's keep the conversation going. I want to get to see you in a little Zoom square and see your radiant smile and hear your laugh. So those are the two things. The Success Mindset Scorecard gives you an indication. Are you in alignment with what you want and how to get there? And then time with me is just allowing you to set that plan in motion, collaborating. How can you keep that plan alive? So those are in place.
And if they want to just learn more about you, you're all over, right? Like LinkedIn.
Yeah. And luckily my name is Ell Graniel. So if you type in Ell Graniel, I always pop up. LinkedIn, I'll be the only first one, right? YouTube, I'm always at the top, thank goodness. So as long as you spell my name right, there I am.
It's not Mary Smith.
my YouTube has so many vlogs there on little bits of things, interpersonal communication, dealing with the difficult boss, becoming a better listener. So there's a lot of, I love my YouTube channel. So to me, that's the best place to learn more and spend more time with me.
Cool.
In the way you want to.
Cool. So before we go, do you have any last minute thoughts or tips for our listeners?
I do. And it's one thing that seems so common sense, but we don't do it. So knowing and doing are two different things. And it's the power of our breath. We are constantly just breathing in survival mode, just enough to keep functioning. And when we get into the breath of thrive, so if you're in your car right now, or even if you're prepping dinner for the family or whatever, you could keep doing what you're doing and breathe in deeply and fully for 4, 3, expanding, and then exhale for 6, 5, keep going, letting go, 2, 1. And you do that domino breathing, 4, 3, feeling really expansive, exhale, let go. And on the third time, imagine you're drawing in love and light because it's yours in abundance by divine right. And then when you exhale, you release, let go, and be here in this moment. Those 3 breaths can give you a sense of calm. You have more oxygen in your brain, which means you can make better decisions. So it's your choice. You can do that anytime you feel you've ever lost control. Take it back with the breath.
And that's such a useful, you mentioned in your car, there are some times when we can get stressed just at the traffic or in reaction to what we see going on around us. And finding a way to calm ourselves quickly and easily without needing external tools is so valuable.
Mm-hmm. And a great time to do that. Have you ever had an argument in your mind with somebody that you know really well? Okay, that's a good time to go, okay, hold on. I'm going to breathe. Because when we get in those arguments, we feel that stress and that anxiety in the gut, and we don't have to feel that way. We can stop it dead in its tracks and go, you know what? I'm going to breathe in some love and light right now, and I'm going to exhale and let go. Because you deserve to feel that peace, not that anxiousness. You deserve the serenity. Yeah. So bring your own self-love anytime that happens.
And on that note, thank you so much for being here with us today. I really enjoyed our conversation.
Wow.
So if you want to know more about Ell, like you said, You can find her anywhere across social media or just click on the link in the show notes below. Okay. Until next time, this is Jean Border, your host of the Focused Practical Dreamers Journey podcast, where we talk all things energy to better your business.
We trust you enjoyed this episode of the Focused Practical Dreamers Journey podcast, energy work to better your business, hosted by energy healer Jean Border. Remember to visit our website at www.focusedpracticaldreamer.com and enjoy even more great episodes like this one. Again, while you're here, subscribe to us via your favorite network. We look forward to seeing you next time on the Focused Practical Dreamers Journey.